Bokeh released Bokeh 3.0, which is kind of crazy. As Bokeh gets better, Dash gets better, right? Because as Bokeh gets better, Hollow views get better. As Hollow views get better, Dash gets better. If you're wondering what the is Bokeh, Hollow views, and Dash, well, let me take you through a little trip of data viz in Python education. Y'all probably know of Seaborn, and for those coming from R, more than likely, you'll also probably know of Plot9. There are two other libraries that do get some play, one of them being Bokeh, and the other one being Vega Lite. It is pretty nice, but some people have said that Vega Lite just feels a little limiting for their needs. A lot of the things you would do in Vega Lite, like something like this, you don't really need to really you don't really need a package simply for these bar charts or simply for like hover tooltip stuff. When something like scikit-learn, or not scikit, something like Seaborn can kind of do all this stuff for you already. So some people, when they learn Vega Lite, they learn it because someone forced them to learn Vega Lite. I have not seen someone choose Vega Lite, and Altair being the port of Vega Lite. I haven't seen someone choose Altair Vega Lite over Seaborn, but it does exist. I have seen people choose Bokeh and therefore Hollow views. Is it good? I think it's fine. I mean, it's asking if like is stats models good? I think it's fine, right? It has its purpose. Some people prefer it to scikit-learn. I think there's still a large amount of people who would prefer scikit-learn to stats models. And I think that's probably the case for people who prefer Matplotlib and Seaborn over Altair, aka Vega Lite. So here's Bokeh. Bokeh is the other one of the more forgotten cases of data viz in Python. Oh, here's a gallery tucked under documentation. Bokeh does have some nice dashboarding type data viz associated to it. This is sort of the a Python focused version of Plotly. But how you create your plots tend to be like in that ggplot object-oriented type of programming. However, a lot of people who started with Bokeh found it a little clunky at first, and it usually takes a while to get used to it, especially when you're using like the matplotlib syntax for so long. I think people just didn't see a reason to jump to it when a lot of this stuff happened in Seaborn, even like tooltip, hover over kind of stuff, right? So Bokeh was like, maybe we pump this up a little. And they create this version of it called Hollow Views, which is essentially the same thing, except you're able to deploy apps in browser or in Notebook, which I thought was really cool. I was like, oh shit, you just put this extension in there, run through your Notebook, and you have this shit in Notebook. Like, wow, that's pretty fucking sick. You could just have in-notebook apps. Nice. That would make deploying in-notebook data viz, in-notebook interactive viz really easy if I just have to send someone a notebook and hide code cells, right? I think that's cool. However, this in of itself was also not necessarily the best version of a deliverable, right? Like, I personally have tried using Hollow Views in notebook form as a deliverable, and the issue with sending out like a notebook as a deliverable to some rando in the organization who has no idea about code or anything is when they open it in their environment, unless I'm pointing everything perfectly back through VPN through their instance and they're on VPN. This actually ended up kind of breaking, and like I would have to either push my data viz to like show an HTML5 and then push those out and then just create an HTML5 report, or ultimately like leave behind the whole interactivity of it all and just produce a regular static report with no interactivity. And so the next iteration of HoloViews was like, well, for people who don't want to deploy apps in Notebook, but still want to develop everything in Notebook and have the choice of deploying an app in Notebook or deploying a completed app into the cloud, similar to things to like say a Shiny app. Well, let's introduce Panel. And so an addition to the HoloViews family is this thing called Panel. And Panel does exactly what it sounds like. Rather than sending a notebook and that notebook has a dashboard in it, this just sends a dashboard. I don't know why none of this stuff changes. Man, this is broken, dude. This is broken, dude. So you can send an app now, and so long as the notebook is hosted somewhere, you could send an app basically mapping to the notebook, and then you could just send notebooks around, which is nice. Streamlit is where it's at. Well, maybe if Streamlit came out with Streamlit 3.0, I'd be talking about it. But they didn't. Bokeh came out with Bokeh 3.0. It seems like a lot of this stuff is just pushing towards more object-oriented programming. I guess this is like their contour plots and their ability to change different aspects of contouring. There's an expanded gallery. Oh, thing that we couldn't get to initially. There's an expanded gallery. Okay. Nice. Initially, Bokeh used to rely on custom layout engines for handling layout-related functionality in browser. This custom implementation wasn't a good fit with the for working with modern web APIs. We've redesigned how Bokeh handles layouts and interacts with DOM/CSS to rely on native functionalities that already exist in modern web browsers, making styling UI components much easier and richer. Yeah, this was one of those things Bokeh had trouble with really early. It was developing some sort of like Python-centric interactive data viz gallery, but finding not a lot of adoption because of its clunkiness as you port it out to CSS. Like, Bokeh's been around for a really long time. They kind of jumped in at a pretty bad time for data viz, to be honest. Like, they jumped in when, like, pre-HTML5. Can you even make, say, a player selector dropdown in Bokeh? Yes. But you most likely would make it in Panel or HoloViews. Bokeh 3.0 includes several new and updated interactive widgets and UI components. You can now input passwords into here. Okay, great. Sounds good. New group box layout adds new options to combine UI elements. Great. Sounds fun. Toolbar now includes updated save and copy tool that's able to handle multiple bars arranged in a grid. Okay, some other shit. Bokeh 3 includes several fixes and enhancements to WebGL rendering in the backend. This can improve Bokeh's performance when visualizing larger data sets. Great. More color palettes. Dude, color palettes, dude. More flexible date-time axes. This is something that Seaborn got wrong so many times. Finally, there's like pretty decent date-time handling now, but for a long time, like for years, their line plot function didn't handle date-time very well. So they created things that accepted like your data frame in a specific order. So in the line plot documentation, at the very bottom here, there was this like, by default, observations sorted by X, disable this to plot a line with the order of the observations that they appear in the data set. That way you could get kind of this like single line that connects to each of these points, as opposed to a line that tries to connect through X ascending, right? So you're able to get sort of this visualized area. Now, for this line plot function before, with time, for some reason it just wouldn't connect in time. It wouldn't just default to like a linear time. It would like be all sorts of fucked up. So having this feature, sort equals false, was something that a lot of people were doing time series analysis, plotting. It really helped. And then they made another package, which doesn't exist anymore, but this is time series plot. And now it's deprecated, but time series plot used to be like a line plot with confidence intervals that did take in time. But now that's all merged into their line plot. So I get tiny improvements might not seem groundbreaking, but when you're trying to play catch up, these are the kinds of things that like other packages dealt with before, and people will default back to them if the functionality isn't there. This is interesting. I haven't really seen rug plots in a long time, but apparently they can do them now. The big thing about Bokeh 3 having any influence on anything is most likely in the holo views and the panel space. There are two other interactive dashboard companies, and now I guess 3, vying for the Python space. I think Plotly Dash is probably ahead of a lot of them. A lot of people are using Plotly Dash in the Python space. One, for its universal coding. It's pretty easy to transfer your code between Plotly, native Plotly stuff, and then being able to bring that into, say, an R environment. That's all been actually pretty nice. And I've worked on a few different teams now where Plotly Dash has been the dashboarding choice. The other one being Streamlit. I've seen a lot of people here doing Streamlit stuff. Shiny has Shiny for Python now, which is, I think it's released. You can actually use it. And if I recall correctly, I tried demoing it at work, and it fits in pretty well. Shiny for Python's awesome. Yeah, it was pretty good out of the box. Panel and holo views would be sort of trying to compete in that mix. I do think there is a place for something like Panel, deploying notebooks, hosting notebooks, sending notebooks around as product is probably something that exists, and that's something that people probably enjoy. I think the use case is fairly narrow, but I think that's a fine use case for it. People who want to be lazy dashboarders but don't want to leave Python. I think Panel could give them that solution.
What's a pirate's favorite programming language? Arr, 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 arr.
Arr, 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 arr,